All right, good morning. We'll call to order the meeting of the Board of Elections, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. The first item on our agenda for today is the reading and the approval of the minutes, which have not been transcribed yet, so we will table that matter for the next meeting of the Board of Elections, which gladly will not feature the three of us as members of the Board of Elections at that point in time. After that, next on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the board on agenda items, and the only agenda item is the motion to certify the municipal election results of November 4, 2025. So I don't know if we have any speakers who wish to address that specific issue. We do have the opportunity for the public to address the board on other matters after. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Is this on?
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Suzanne Crambo Green. I was a candidate for the county position of clerk of judicial records. I would like to discuss some of the issues that have occurred during the election. One being the felony charges that have been brought against a judge of elections and an inspector at a precinct in Scranton. I would like that to be addressed prior to certification of the election. Additionally, there was a recount of several different precincts in the county, some of them being in Old Forge. One of the candidates for council for the 2-year unexpired term was on site, but he was not provided the full opportunity to see the hand recount. I know that there are records that pertain to that, and I did ask DA Brian Gallagher to investigate, which he did investigate that. However, I would like the election board to, one, be knowledgeable in that recount, know what happened, and then address those issues that were pertaining to that specific hand recount. And why the candidate was told that, well, since it's what I've heard and what the investigation showed was that he was told all these 3 are fine, so you don't have to stay and watch the rest of it. However,
Who was the candidate? I'm not familiar with the situation.
Mr. Hoover.
Hoover?
Hoover, yes.
Okay. H-U-B-E-R?
H-O-O-V-E-R.
Oh, okay.
James Hoover.
Okay.
Candidate for council for Old Forge for the unexpired 2-year term. The number of votes were near 3,000, and the 2 top candidates were at a difference of only 4 votes.
And he was one of the top 2 candidates?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and it was a difference of how many votes?
4.
4.
Okay.
A very extremely slim margin. So there were actually, ma'am, I am so sorry.
It's okay.
There are actually several very close races, and in every very close race, it appears that the Republican candidate lost in every single one that was of that very slim margin, which does make someone more apt to trust but verify. So that, I think, is important for us to recognize that we need to trust but verify. I personally did ask for a complete recount of all
Thank you.
of all
Go ahead, finish this.
all votes in Lackawanna County as a county candidate. I'm sorry, I didn't know that I had a time limit. I'm not aware of a time limit.
3 minutes.
However, I'll be brief. I did ask for a complete recount, and I was told no by Mr. Frederickson, based on the fact that they didn't have the ability or I'm sorry, he probably does remember the verbiage exactly. However, I was told no, that a recount was not going to be performed.
You requested a recount of every district?
I did.
Okay.
Based on the fact that we had felony charges brought up against a judge of election and an inspector, that cannot be said that that's not that big a deal, because it is a big deal. It's election integrity. And how it was handled is a big issue. So that judge of election was allowed to stay on the job and continue being the judge of election. We do have first-hand knowledge and witness evidence that police were actually on site during the day in that precinct, or in that polling location, I should say. However, the judgment call, possibly by Mr. Frederickson, but certainly by Ms. Hopkins, who I do respect very highly, and I do believe that she knows that, the judgment call was not the correct one. When there's knowledge that there is fraudulent activity happening in a polling location, the judge of election should have been removed immediately. The public's perception that the election is not, there's not integrity in the election is highly important, that we need to keep that integrity. And trust, public trust. Right now that's been scarred because of the felony charges, because that person was left on the job as well. So for those reasons, I did ask for a complete recount. And I'm asking right now the board again for the complete recount to maintain election integrity and trust, public trust in our election system. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Can I
you.
ask one question?
Go ahead.
I just miss Green, or Preamble Green, if I can ask.
Preambo, yes.
Okay,
Suzanne Preambo Green, yes, sir.
all right. So I just want to make sure I understand the issue with regards to Mr. Hoover that you're raising. You're indicating there that at the time of the recount, that Mr. Hoover was not permitted to view or to witness the recount. Am I correct there?
Mr. Hoover was kept at a distance that he did not have a substantial opportunity to observe. He was kept at a distance of like my distance to this desk. So he did not have a good view of what the hand count was happening.
What would you say, 3 or 4 feet? Is that what you?
No, it was 10, I was told by the candidate, 10 to 12 feet
Oh, okay.
away, a distance. Now, on the other side of the desk, of course, you'd be able to see and observe very well. But he also only observed 3 or 4 of the 7 precincts actually being counted. He did not observe all 7. Additionally, the
Why?
hand count was started before he even arrived.
Oh, is that why he only observed 3 or 4, because the hand count started before he arrived?
I would like to say that that was true, but it's not. They started the hand count prior to him arriving. He was asked to come at 9:30. The hand count started at some time prior to that. When he arrived, which he was not late, he says to me, the hand count was proceeding after approximately 3 or 4 precincts were counted. He was told, well, all of them are fine, they're all the same. You don't have to stay for the rest if you don't want to.
And he left voluntarily?
He did, yes.
Okay.
He was not made aware of his ability to stay and have, observation that would be substantially appropriate. So from here, this distance, I cannot read or see the paperwork on this desk. He was at least this far away, if not further.
So just, and before I ask the county representatives to respond, are you requesting that the motion to certify the election results be rejected or denied?
I'm asking that they be postponed until a complete recount is completed.
Okay, because I believe, but I stand to be corrected, I believe the time deadline for requesting that relief was Tuesday.
I did request it. I did request it timely.
Okay.
Your Honors, the time deadline has passed. Ms. Green did request a countywide 163 precinct recount by email. As the court knows, you cannot request a countywide recount by email. It has to be done by petition. It has to be filed with the court. You need 3 voters from each precinct, and you have to post $50 per precinct to do that. She did none of that. She received an email asking that it be a hand recount of all of the districts, which is completely insufficient legally. There were hand recounts in 2 precincts because the margin was less than 0.05% for the 2 races, and they were recounted. And we did do a hand recount, though we didn't have to. We could have done another machine count, but we did a hand recount in those 2 precincts.
Okay.
Or district, I'm sorry, 2 borough. It was a borough and a township, right? Yeah, it was Old Forge Borough and Clifton Township, yeah, and Greenfield Township.
However, the basis was because of fraudulent activity and felony charges brought up against a judge of election. This was not just a request because I didn't win. This was a request based on fraudulent and criminal activity during the election and the way it was handled by Mr. Frederickson and Ms. Hopkins.
Okay. And just, I mean, in my 27 years as a judge, I've been involved with recount requests. And as Mr. Frederickson indicated, usually it's just for a specific district. It's a petition. It has to be by petition presented to the court, signed by an appropriate number of electors from that district, and of the proper fee being paid as well. So what he was indicating is if somebody wished to have a recount of all districts, first of all, the time period passed on Tuesday under the election code. And I should tell you the time periods under the election code all have the word shall, and which makes them mandatory. And secondly, you know, we don't have a petition having been presented to the court. We don't have the signatures by the 3 electors from each of the 163 districts, and we don't have the appropriate fee having been paid. But how about with respect, oh, go ahead, you're going to say something?
No, I was just saying that.
How about with respect to the issue with Mr. Hoover not being, and starting the recount before you told him it would start?
Sure, Your Honor. It is advertised that the recanvass starts on Friday at 9 o'clock. It's in the paper. It is advertised, publicly made available. His lawyer, Attorney Tony Loma, who is representing the Republican Party, and also Mr. Hoover, was there at 9 o'clock. Mr. Hoover arrived late, not through any fault of the election board. He arrived late. They did a hand recount of all 7 districts in Old Forge, contrary to what she was asserting. He left early. Him and his lawyer, they said they were satisfied, and they left. However, after the fact, after the 7 districts were counted by hand, Ms. Green sent numerous emails and phone calls to the election board indicating that all 7 precincts were not counted, when in fact they were, and demanding that, basically asking for relief for Mr. Green, to the effect that we received correspondence from Attorney... Mr. Hoover. We received correspondence first from Attorney Loma saying, Mr. Hoover is fine. He doesn't want to pursue this. He's satisfied with the recanvass of Old Forge. Ms. Green continued to send emails and call the office, the election office, to the extent where another attorney, Attorney Gene Tallarico, representing Mr. Hoover, contacted us and said, my guy's fine. leave him alone. He doesn't want to be bothered. He's happy with the result. He's happy with the canvas as it was done.
Can I ask a
That's a
question?
mischaracterization.
It is not.
of the
It's okay, it's
Can-
okay, it's okay.
Can I ask a question? And this was obviously swirling around in my head prior to Ms. Preambo Green talking about the issue with Mr. Hoover. Is either Mr. Hoover or Attorney Loma present, or Attorney Talarico, to discuss the issue on their own behalf? All right.
Okay, so you had addressed the request for the recount in all 163 districts, and you also addressed the issue with Mr. Hoover. How about the issue with what had transpired on election day with the judge of elections in that particular district? And just for the record, so everyone would know, we judges usually, typically, on election day, sit as the assigned judges for certain time periods in the event there are any election issues that develop. In my case, when I'm assigned, I take my laptop down to the government center, and I'm there to address any issues that may develop. Because of the fact that Judge Moyle and Judge Ruggiero and I sat as the Board of Elections for this particular election, we would not and did not sit as judges on election day. So when we first would have become aware of all what had transpired was after the fact, and after it was already in the hands of the district attorney's office and the like. So I'd ask the county officials if they could address the issue involving Kathy Seco and her son.
Of course, Your Honor, yes. Ms. Seco was a roving judge. She was sent over to that precinct, her and her son, because they didn't have workers for that poll. They were on the list that had been previously approved by the Board of Election to serve out of precinct. During the day, one of our election workers at the office received a call from a voter there that there was an issue going on with regard to ballots. He called over and spoke to her. Ms. Hopkins was not made aware of the situation until, I think, 4:30-ish. Later in the day, around 4:30, when she received an email from an unidentified individual indicating that he had received a ballot with a name written on for the office of Judge of Election in that precinct. She immediately dispatched the sheriffs over there to find out what was going on. The sheriffs went over, they observed the situation, had a conversation with Ms. Seco, indicated to her, you can't write your name on ballots, evidently, for that reason. At that time, we were unaware that it was more than an isolated incident. We thought it was a one-time deal. We didn't realize that she had been doing this, evidently, and we didn't find that out until later when we had to open the ballots on Friday for the recanvass. The district attorney came over and we opened the ballots at that time. Because they have to remain sealed, as you know, until the recanvass starts, because the recanvass is a public process. That's open to everybody. Additionally, I would just say what she was doing didn't really make a lot of sense. She was writing her name in for Judge of Election in a ward in West Scranton when she doesn't live in Scranton. So even if she had won that election, she was ineligible to serve in that office. So it really didn't make a lot of sense to us what she was doing. But we did refer the matter over to the district attorney, who did open a criminal investigation. And as you know, some charges were already filed in that case.
Yeah, I thought in information that the Board of Elections had received prior to today was that a phone call first came in to a staff member, not to you or not to Ms. Hopkins.
Correct, that is correct.
From an anonymous person who indicated that a name had been written on for the Judge of Elections. And
correct.
Before it got to either of you, that staff member called out to the district and spoke to the woman who was the Judge of Elections, this Ms. Seco.
Correct, Your Honor.
And that
yes.
she
denied
having written it in, that she stated she was asked by the voter to spell her name because the voter wanted to write her name in. And let me finish.
Yeah.
And that her son wrote the name on the ballot, spelling out the name at the request of the voter. That was the first reply or information
Correct.
that you were provided with.
That is correct, Your Honor, yes.
And then
Yeah.
you said later around 4:30 something else?
Ms. Hopkins got an email at that time from an unidentified voter, basically indicating the same thing had occurred, that the name was written on a ballot, at which time she dispatched the sheriffs.
And the sheriffs then went out, and what information were the sheriffs able to gather?
Well, basically, they went to the polls, they observed what was going on, it was an orderly election, there was no issue. They did speak with the judge of election and, reiterated to her that she's not, not allowed to put her name on a ballot, of course. And then, I'm not sure what the conversation.
Did she give the same explanation to them that she had provided to
I'm
the
not
staff?
sure that we know, we're not sure what conversation she had with the sheriff, but I know the sheriffs did report back to the election board that everything was under control over there and it was an orderly, everything was proceeding in an orderly fashion.
Did she acknowledge to the sheriff that she or someone else had written her name on the ballot?
I don't know, I'm not sure, Judge. I can't answer that.
The other question that has been posed is upon receiving first the report that the staff member received and then subsequently what you would have received and presumably learned from the sheriff's office. My understanding was after the sheriff reported the information, you referred it to the district attorney at that time?
Yes, we referred it to the district attorney.
That same afternoon, it was referred to the district attorney's office.
It was later that day, but it was referred over to the.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
A call was made to the district attorney and he was let know what was going on. And I think a formal email was sent the next morning because it was election day and,
Okay.
the offices were closed, yeah.
But the question that was being posed, and I don't want to mischaracterize it, but was after it had been referred to by the time you contacted the district attorney's office, it was before the polls would have closed at 8 p.m.
I believe so, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I believe the question is, why was she allowed to remain on the job and not removed from the job at the
Well,
time?
we believe it was an isolated incident, Your Honor. We think that the email and the phone call were from the same person. And we just thought it was a one-time incident. And quite frankly, we did send the sheriff. Everything was proceeding according. There was no issues over there. The polls were not being disturbed. People were voting. And
Was this woman and her son the only two election officials in that
precinct,
building?
they were the only two at that precinct. There's another precinct in the building with a separate judge of election and election workers.
At the same table, at a different table, or?
Different tables, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry, I asked all the
No,
questions.
no, that's okay. I
No.
was just gonna ask
But-
one more. So,
Yes.
when you opened the machines and you retrieved the ballots, other than this issue of her name appearing handwritten on a number of ballots, were there any other irregularities or any other evidence of fraud uncovered by you with regard to that particular precinct?
There were not.
We didn't find
Any other
anything.
reports from voters? Any
No.
other concerns raised by voters about other irregularities?
No, and there were no challenges or requests for recounts from that precinct, Your Honor.
Okay.
And was someone else ultimately elected the judge of elections in that district?
There was a three-way tie, each receiving one vote, and there was a drawing of lots yesterday, which Beth can speak to that.
There was someone elected yesterday. There was a casting of lots. There were 3 voters that each successfully had 1 write-in that are registered in that precinct. So that particular gentleman will get his letter in the mail and his certificate, and hopefully he will accept the position.
Okay. And would the same be true for the inspector of elections?
That is correct. There was also an inspector elected.
So was someone elected, or were they tied and you had to have the?
Ties.
Three-way ties.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. Were there that other ward and district that's located, this was over in Jackson Street, is that correct, in West Side? the two wards and districts are at the same polling location, am I correct?
That's correct.
All right. Did the Election Bureau receive any other types of complaints out of that polling location that day from either? And I understand that judges of elections were at different tables, but you're at the same polling location. Did the other judge of election or anyone else, other than those two instances, raise any issues with what was going on? Or
I received no phone calls or emails from any
Okay.
other voters or from the other judge in
Okay.
reference to that.
Don, are you aware of anything?
Nope.
Okay.
None were not.
Very, okay.
All right, any other questions? Okay, all right, okay.
On
thank you.
on this issue, we do have eyewitness. We have a woman who was on site during the day as a volunteer.
When you say, are you talking about Old Forge or are you talking about
This Jackson Heights,
Jackson Heights?
yes.
Is she here now?
She is here and her father is here, yes.
Does the eyewitness want to speak?
I don't know if they've been in contact with the district attorney's office. I should, for the,
Yeah. Yeah,
what's that?
there is an ongoing investigation.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if the district attorney is aware that there was an eyewitness,
Well, don't.
but there is an eyewitness here.
Somebody should make them aware, maybe?
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna know now.
Yeah.
And I should, just so that you understand, because of the fact that we three have sat as the Board of Elections for this particular election in which this activity occurred, we would obviously not handle the underlying criminal cases against either one of those individuals. We
Of
would
course.
be recusing on those.
However, this is the basis that I asked for a recount. There's been fraudulent activity. It was allowed to continue even after notification to the election office. And that alone warrants recounts when there is known fraudulent activity that is allowed to continue.
So
That is the
you're
basis.
asking us to waive the requirements that are in the statute when you want to ask for a recount, right? We've already talked about it. There are certain requirements that a petitioner has to follow. And you're asking us to waive all of those requirements and allow you to make an oral motion here today to supplement your email motion or your request for a recount?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And I believe that there's a clause, and I'm sorry, I'm not an attorney, I don't have the election rules in front of me. However, in reading it at some point, I believe that there was something in there, when there is fraudulent activity, there should be a recount. That's what the basis is, that's what I sent the email about, that's what I made the request for.
The larger issue is the timeliness of it, because I can tell you, and I can give you a specific example out of this county, and I believe it was back in 2009, but we had a candidate who filed to run for office, and he had already been declared by the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania to be ineligible for office because of his felony convictions. And so after the time deadline, the district attorney's office filed something that was assigned to me, and they were 100% right on the law. He was ineligible to serve. He could not serve per the Pennsylvania Constitution that says you cannot be a candidate or elected to public office if you've been convicted of an infamous crime, which his crimes did constitute infamous crimes under the case law. But they had filed it one day late. And so because of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania case law that said if you miss these deadlines, you must deny the petition, I denied the petition. The DA, hear me out, the DA appealed that to the Commonwealth Court, and the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania affirmed me. So
I agree. My request was timely. My request was timely.
Yeah.
It was within the time designated. It was to
Elizabeth
The
Hopkins
request for the
and
recount has to be,
Mr.
it has to be
Frederickson.
a petition that's presented to the court.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Your Honor, she did file her request by an email.
Right.
And it's insufficient. It needs to be done by petition. And I responded to her and I told her that because of her, we weren't able to accommodate her email, basically. We didn't have the authority. Beth does not have the authority to order a countywide recount as the Board of Elections director. It needs to go to the board, it needs to go to the court, basically, and the court has to order that. And it has to be done by petition and it has to be filed within the time frame. Additionally, she's asking for a countywide recount because of an incident that occurred in one precinct in Scranton. I mean, how that would affect the election in the rest of the county, I'm troubled to see. I don't know how that would affect votes in Moscow or Music or Greenfield or wherever else it may be.
With all due respect, Mr. Frederickson, you do know that my email to you stated 3 different causes for a recount. 1 being the Scranton one, 2 being the Old Forge, and 3 being a personnel issue within the election board office, whether it's a whistleblower or something for cause. I'm unaware, but there is something.
Again, it has to be by petition, not email. You can't request things by email.
We are unable to grant relief here today
Okay.
because the law specifies what the requirements are. The petition filed with the court with the requisite number of electors signing on in support and the fee, right? So all of those steps must be taken before we can even consider it. So I think, do you agree? I mean, we don't have any.
Well, yeah, well, the timeliness is the more fatal.
All right, well, it does sound like you were not aware of these other issues that have been occurring in the election department. And it seems that you've just heard about them here. So with that, I would ask that you consider postponement and to a review. And I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
We appreciate your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you.
I just want to point out to the board that there were recounts in three towns, Old Forge, Greenfield, and Clifton, because under the state law, if the vote difference between the top 2 is less than 0.5%, is a mandatory recount. And in Old Forge, there was a 4-vote difference. In Clifton, I think it was a 4 there too?
It was small margin.
Yeah, small margins that kicked in that provision of the election code that required us to do those recounts. And that's the only reason they were done without a petition, because the state law mandated those.
What
But
would,
any other one-
and I'll be impressed if you know this off the top of your head, but the district that's involved, Ward 5, District 1.
6-1, Judge, 6-1.
6-1, I'm sorry,
That's right, Judge.
the Ward 6 District, Precinct 1. What would have been ballpark the total number of votes cast in that entire
We have that,
district?
Judge.
There were 210 total votes cast in that precinct. 141 of them were on election day, and 69 were cast by mail-in or absentee ballot.
So
Okay,
141.
so were any of the countywide elections, the margins of victory in the 200 vote, I mean, for countywide office, any of those positions? In other words, that this particular district, theoretically, hypothetically, those 200 and some votes, if they had gone a different way than they were recorded, would have affected one of the elections for countywide office?
Not to my
No,
knowledge.
no, Judge, no. Even if all of them went one way, they wouldn't have affected a countywide run, no.
Pardon me, I didn't hear
I
that.
said even if all of the votes went one way or another, they would not have affected a countywide run, Judge.
Okay, you were going to say something.
It seems, at least to me, and I'm only speaking for myself, fairly straightforward. I think the law contemplates those instances in which there are going to be close races. That's why the statute calls for an automatic recount in those instances. And in those 3 instances in which the recounts occurred, it occurred for those reasons. And to Ms. Preambo Green's point, I think the system and what occurred is exactly what should have occurred. There was an issue raised relative to an alleged fraudulent act or inappropriate act. It was addressed resulting in what appears to be felony charges filed against those individuals, and perhaps rightfully so. We don't pass any judgment on that, as Judge Nealon said. But in that one instance, and I'm not hearing any other instances of any other alleged voter fraud going on anywhere across the county. So therefore, at least from my perspective, I don't believe this impinges upon or in any way places any shadow of a doubt upon this election, particularly since it was handled in the way that it was handled. You know, we can agree maybe to disagree on, you know, whether in that second instance that judge of election should have been removed or not. But from my standpoint, it's almost of harmless error, because for whatever reason she was doing it didn't make any sense, because she could never have been elected the judge of election in that precinct anyway. So again, I'm only speaking for myself in that regard, but I don't believe it casts any aspersions upon the entirety or upon the context of the 2025 general election.
And just to add one final footnote to it, we did, in advance of the election, obviously have a meeting, and as I recall, there were two primary agenda items. One was temporarily moving some polling places because of construction that was being done, or ADA compliance. I don't exactly recall what the reason was. And the other was, which we get pretty much in every election anymore, is that we don't have enough workers from people who are registered to vote in particular districts to serve as judges of election and the inspectors in each particular district. People have just not come forward, and for that reason, the county uses people who are willing to serve in that capacity, albeit not in their own voting district. I remember from the distance past, I think we used to get students from the University of Scranton who used to volunteer to do it as kind of a civic lesson for them. And what has been submitted to us by the county officials is that this woman in particular first started performing this service in 2019. So she had done so without incident, to everyone's knowledge, in 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, so, or 24 rather, not 25. So 6 prior occasions she had served without incident. So when we would have been approving the list of the roving workers, or I forget what exactly their titles would be, at the time of our last meeting, there was no indication whatsoever that there was any issue with this woman or her son. And I assume you would not have submitted her name or her son's name if that was the
Correct,
fact.
Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Any other individuals wish to address the, is it a 3-minute or a 5-minute limit?
A 3-minute.
3-minute limit,
So
okay,
a
all right.
3-minute time limit will be
Okay.
imposed.
All right, go ahead. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Teresa Ripley. I was a volunteer poll watcher at Trips Park on this most recent election. I was there from like 8:30 in the morning until we were doing the final tallies at 9 o'clock at night, you know, with the strips of paper, and I brought them back. But people trickled through all day long, and you're right, sir. They were short one inspector at one table, and they were short 2 inspectors at the other table. Just a man was manning the one table, and 2 ladies were manning the other table, and there was 1 judge of elections. So I've done a lot of vote watching over the years, and I had a ticker, an athletic ticker for like balls and strikes or whatever. You know, the tickers, the counters. And I've always given myself an error of margin of like 1 to 3 misses, like I might be over or short a few people I may have missed, especially during the busy time. But like around 3:30 or 4, I went to the bathroom for the first time all day. I wasn't in there for more than 5, maybe 8 minutes. I came out, I sat down, and I thought, oh, I better take another count. I did every 2 hours, check the tables, how many people voted. And I was off by 75. I'm like, wait a minute, I missed 75 people? Like, how could that possibly even be? I allow maybe 1 to 3 people I may have missed, but 75. So I just felt like, you know, at the expense of my family and my job, I'm there all day long. It's a volunteer position, and I'm like, I know it's too late for you to, as you just mentioned, to recount, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And one of the candidates did come in and walk around and talk to people, which, from my understanding, is not appropriate. They're supposed to stay outside. So that was noted. And finally, the Democrat vote watcher was not there. And I like the Democrat vote watcher to be there. And I've always had good working relationships with them because we're both there for the same reason. We want it to be fair. And in 20, I was with this old black man down in Southside, and he was the Democrat poll watcher. We both got kicked out. And I brought it to your attention, and you said you would look into it. You did not. You just sent me an email which copied and pasted all the duties of a vote watcher, which I found to be very dismissive. 2 more things and I'm off.
Go ahead.
On the website, there's no Thornhurst data. I live in North Pocono and I'm always looking. There's no Thornhurst data on the website, and there's no write-in data on the web. Where? I did. So when were they posted? Because it's not just me that couldn't find. Oh, last Friday. Okay, I will check again. And that's finally on there as well. Okay.
Is it in with the L's rather than the T's? Okay.
Yeah, and that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And when you mentioned the 75 difference, were you going over, you didn't say it specifically, but I assume that you looked at the book where people signed in and they have the total number of people that.
I let the inspectors give me the numbers.
Okay.
And then I wrote them down on my paper and I looked at my clicker and I'm like, 75? Like, what?
You weren't in the bathroom that long is what you were saying to yourself.
No way was I in there. So then I'm like, well, maybe I should mention something because it's a waste of my time if I don't mention something, you know?
Thank
We
you.
appreciate
All
it.
right,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Volunteer too. Anyone else? Okay, all right. Okay, then the next item that we have on the agenda would be a motion to certify the November 4, 2025 municipal election results. It says Speaker Elizabeth Hopkins.
Okay.
Anything you wish to add?
Thank you. The municipal election that was held on November 4th, 2025, 65,662 ballots were cast in the county. 49,164 ballots were cast on Election Day, and 16,300 ballots were cast by mail-in or absentee. Voter turnout was 44.34%, which is very high for a municipal cycle. The official canvass began on Friday, November 7th, 2025, and continued until Friday the 14th. There were over 13,000 write-ins that had to be adjudicated by the staff. So I'd like to commend the staff that did that. It's a tedious task. It takes many, many days, and they did a fabulous job. It is worth mentioning that we did do a full hand recount of all the ballots in Old Forge, in addition to the mail-in ballots. We did a full hand recount of the Clifton Township Supervisor and the Greenfield Township Supervisor. There was no change in the outcome of who won the races, maybe picked up a provisional ballot, but besides that, there was no change in the outcome. And there were no challenges filed. Thank you.
you. Any questions of that? Okay.
Nope.
All right, okay. Then, does anyone wish to make a motion to certify the November 4, 2025 municipal election results?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so the November 4, 2025 municipal election results will be certified. Next on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the board on any non-agenda items, other than, what we've discussed already. Does anyone wish to address the board? Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Mhm. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
My name is Linda Bonskevich. I'm a judge of elections up in Benton Township. And I just want to make this aware to the board, to bring it to your attention. The past 3 elections, I had law enforcement involved at my polls.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you had what?
Law enforcement
Okay.
involved. And November 5th, I was assigned a clerk. This person arrived and he was very disruptive. After he opened the machine of all the ballots, I had him removed with the sheriffs. I put in a complaint last November and I have not heard anything about it. May 7th of 25, the sheriffs were called on me to have me arrested because there was an angry voter about the write-ins and how they were around. And I also got a threatening call from Harrisburg. November 4th, 25, this past election, we had a lot of disgruntled voters and they were complaining and it frustrated people that don't get frustrated a lot. It was really upsetting the clerks and the majority and minority inspectors. So and this one girl came in and she was really out of control and
She was a voter or?
she was a voter.
Okay.
And so I called Ed, then I called the sheriffs, then I called the state police. So the state police have her for
I'm sorry, who's
disorderly
Ed? I
conduct.
was just, you said you called Ed?
Who's that?
The elected. Yes. And then I called the sheriffs and they said, well, by the time the sheriffs come up, she'll be gone. Just get her to put the ballot in the machine and ask her nicely to leave, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I went back outside, I heard what she was doing outside to the people. But she videotaped me in the voting polls. She ripped up papers and was very disruptive to the minority clerk, or majority inspector and the clerk. She grabbed the book and said, give me that, I'll find my name myself. And I told her, you're not supposed to touch that, and blah, blah, blah. And then she was just very, very, very rude. So I had her arrested, and she's getting disorderly conduct. I want to ask you if there's anything that she did in the voting polls that she can get also charged about and with. Recording me.
We can't,
Can't give
I'm
legal
sorry, the
opinions.
code of judicial conduct, we
Or
can't give
advice.
legal
Okay,
advice to
that's fine.
people as to, trust me, family members get very upset when you give that response to them when they're looking
Okay,
for
that's
some
fine.
free advice.
But as judge of election, I'm responsible like what happens at the polls. So this is 3 times that my team and I are been like harassed. And that's a big red flag to me. And I'm scared for us, I'm scared for the community. And I really, I'd like to know, can a felon work the polls? Okay, then why was I assigned
No.
one last November?
I don't know.
He's the one that was taken out by the sheriffs that I made a complaint about and I never got a response about.
The clerk who was disruptive?
Yes.
Okay.
And then who assigns them, and the judges, inspectors, and clerks? And then why wasn't I, get an answer for my complaint? And aren't state and federal employees supposed to get criminal background checks?
I don't know.
I think that would be a great idea if we were gonna have people in the polls that are doing integrity elections, and we don't want
Well,
felons
that
in
would be
there.
up to the individual employer, right? So if the state is the employer, what background checks they do when they're hiring their employees? And the same thing with the federal government, if they have requirements when they're hiring their employees. But if you're asking us, or you're just making a request, or I guess you're just speaking out loud, because you're not asking us to order the federal government or the state government to start doing background checks on who they hire, because we wouldn't have the authority to do that.
Okay, so if that gentleman was sent to me in last November and he was assigned as a watcher, is that still legal if he's a felon?
Wait, November of
Well,
2024?
we don't assign watchers. Watchers are assigned by the candidates or the
candidates.
parties.
Can
So
they
be felons?
we have nothing to do with
They
that.
be felons?
I don't know.
I don't know that there's a
Because
prohibition.
that was the
I don't
same
know.
gentleman that I was sent to and he caused the problem. The same exact thing he did to me, he did to that precinct this year.
I don't know if there's a prohibition about
Right.
watchers, to be honest with
Watchers.
you. I
Right.
know election officials are not allowed to be felons or hold felony convictions.
The watchers would be assigned by individual candidates.
Candidates or the parties
Or the
sometimes
parties.
assign, your honors, yeah.
Okay.
And I know there was another precinct that had another felon where the girl was coming in to vote and it was her ex-boyfriend that abused her. And he was sitting at the table knowing her name and her address and stuff. So she was so scared, I didn't even know if she did vote because she was afraid to go in the room. And he was a felon also.
Can you speak to the prior complaints that she referenced that she had made to the election bureau?
In 2025, as you know, is a very busy election. It's a federal election cycle. We had a number of people that had sent in poll worker interest forms that were interested in serving for the election in different capacities. We took a look at all the precincts throughout the county and all the election officials throughout the county, the election coordinator, to try to make sure that there was party balance at each precinct. There were some precincts that had all Democratic election officials, some had all Republicans. So when these people send in the poll worker interest forms, you verify that they're a registered voter in the county, you search their party, and you ask them, are you willing to serve outside of your precinct, or you're only willing to serve in your precinct? A number of them are willing to serve outside of their precinct. So we chose to put some of these people where we needed some party balance. The gentleman she's speaking of was sent to her precinct to work. There was an altercation, a he said, she said. We spoke to the judge, we sent the sheriffs up, and he was removed from the precinct and not compensated for that day. This particular judge of election who's speaking now stated that he went into the machine. The judge of election is the only person that is to have the keys to the machine on election day. So I'm not sure why someone who was assigned as a clerk would have had the keys to get into the election machine where the ballots were. The judge is supposed to be in possession of those keys all day long. He was removed from the polls, and he has never worked the polls again.
Well, there is a statement from the minority leader inspector stating what happened, because it was a busy day, and it explains everything, how that happened.
So, but the clerk no longer,
Was removed.
okay.
Okay.
And did he get paid for that day?
He did not. She said that. Okay.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear that,
Okay.
sorry. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
One more thing is, I hear that the voter machines are supposed to be all certified before every new election. And my sources say that they are not.
And certified in what manner? I'm not sure what she's saying.
Well, say you have
They are-
10,
they are-
10 machines, and you only do 2, and you send all 10 of them out. That means 8 of them were not
You mean tested?
tested.
Every single
Every
machine
machine
was
is,
tested
every machine is
twice.
tested, yes.
Our Ellen,
So in our county, they were all tested. Okay, thank you for that answer. Oh, okay, very good.
Okay,
I'm
thank
learning
you.
as I go. So I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you,
Thanks
you
for listening.
too.
Same to you. Thank
And
you.
thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who wishes to address the board on any other issues? Okay. Any other business from any of the other
No.
members? If not, I'll entertain it. I have to say, typically when we judges sit as the Board of Elections, and it's usually because, the commissioner's race and the like, and it's having to approve maybe a couple of temporary polling changes and roving voters, and then, of course, certifying the election results. But it's usually pretty low impact. But if I had known when Judge Gibbons had asked me last spring to serve on the Board of Elections, what was on the horizon, I might have had a cold that day or something, that made me ineligible to serve.
But you made it through, Judge.
Yeah, I'm still striving. But, so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn our final meeting as the Board of Elections.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you,
everyone, for attending.
Have a good day. Happy Thanksgiving.